and dialogues among different stakeholders in promoting inclusive rural development. So with that in mind, we have approximately 1 hour on this session, and we will recognize the implementation of SDGs localization, which will feature case studies and initiatives, as well as policy coherence on SDGs from different agencies, as well as ministries in realizing the sustainable rural development. And then after the presentation of our speakers, we will have a session for Q&A. So without further ado, I would like to invite our 4 distinguished speakers. The first one is Ms. Sanjivani Dilante Singh, Economic Affairs Officers of UNSCAP, who will be joining online. May we kindly check if Ms. Sanjivani is here with us? I would like. Thank you very much. So all 3 speakers are here. May we kindly invite or check if Ms. Sanjivani Dilant Singh okay, so while waiting for While waiting for Ms. Sanjivani, perhaps we can go to our second speakers, beautiful lady here, Dr. Juliari Ansha Sopakwa, Senior Officer for Program Integration and Development Analysis of UNDP Indonesia, who will present on opportunities, challenges, and the role of innovation in the context of SDG localization. Just a gentle reminder, distinguished speakers, you will have approximately 10 to 12 minutes, max, tops, for your presentation, and then after that, it will be followed by a Q&A session. Dr. Ansha, the floor is yours.
Thank you so much, Ajeng, as the moderator. Good afternoon. I'm going to... Hello? Yeah, it's okay? I'm just going to speak English, yeah?
Yes, please.
Okay, yeah. So, Excellencies, distinguished delegates, participants, good morning, selamat pagi, salam sejahtera untuk kita semua. Representing UNDP Indonesia, I'm delighted to be here with you to discuss the importance of villages' contribution in achievement of sustainable development goals. While the end of COVID pandemic has been declared, the road to social and economic recovery remains challenging, and it is of a critical importance to get the SDG back on track to address poverty, food and water scarcity, climate crisis, and other priorities. Looking at our global context today, it is no surprise that we are experiencing unprecedented setbacks of SDGs. The COVID-19 pandemic has widened the SDG financing gap, a staggering 50% to $3.7 trillion for developing countries. That is annual budget, $3.7 trillion. That's need to sit with us a bit, $3.7 trillion, that's a lot of money. The ongoing war in Ukraine has also caused a massive global disruption, with over 70 million people expected to fall into poverty, with food and energy crisis of unprecedented proportion. But in spite of these facts, the call for urgent action to resolve poverty and food and all other crises does not abate. Yeah? So the SDGs if you think about it, SDG is global ambition. Yeah. However, villages are where actions happen and where SDG becomes reality. So by localizing our SDG actions, we can tailor them to specific needs and contexts of people and community, ensuring that they are relevant and impactful. I actually have slides, but there is no way for me to show it, right? So that's okay. I just keep going here. Ladies and gentlemen, so last week I was with Gus Menteri and Indonesia delegation and Pak Himawan in New York for high-level political forum of SDGs. And Indonesia have a side event, put together a side event, titling Driving Change at the Local Level, Innovative Approach to Localize the SDGs, Experience, Reflection, and Way Forward. And Gus Menteri was explaining what he explained today to us with SDG Desa, with how important the role of villages, and the side event drew great attention from other countries and international organizations alike. Ladies and gentlemen, I would like to offer 3 points that I think will be critical if we were to do or we were to make villages as a hope. So that was actually my title, that is to make villages as the opportunity for countries in ASEAN, Indonesia and other countries, to achieve SDGs. And that is to say that villages have the opportunity to contribute immensely to achievement of SDGs. So what are those 3 points? The first one is empowering villages to own their development agenda. We hear Gus Menteri was also talking about this. Empowering villages requires a comprehensive approach. Policy that allow villages to decide on their own development path, accompanied with adequate investment, will be the basic requirement. Yeah? So you need to give them the opportunity and power to decide, coupled with adequate investment. Then to encourage meaningful participation of all sections of community, including women, people with disabilities, youth group. So Indonesia, with Village Law number 6, 2014, and Village Fund program that is around $5 billion per year is one great example. In encouraging community to participate, currently UNDP is working with Ministry of Village together with IFAD in testing some new platform that use digital tools that encourage everybody in the village within the process of Musrenbang. This is the local planning to determine what their development path is. I need to, okay, so that is the first one. The second one, so one other thing in terms of development path for the villages is integrated approach to planning, so the result of the planning. So what we are doing with Ministry of Village now is something called Social Innovation Platform, which is the process that's quite similar, but the result is an integrated initiative that will transform. So the idea is to transform villages. Pak Himawan here from Bappenas, we need now is transformation, ya Pak? So the change is not enough. We need to transform and transform the country, including transform villages. So, and the third point that is to, with the capacity building. So you give the power to the villages with investment. Capacity building is still very important. And that is for the planning process with different knowledge and different skills that required by village and villagers. The second point is policy coherence. Policy coherence is very important and very critical in achievement of SDG because it's ensure that policies are aligned and consistent, implemented in a cohesive manner, which maximize their effectiveness, efficiency, impact, and ultimately accelerate the achievement of SDGs. Basically to say that things that are done at national level, in terms of SDG, there is roadmaps, there is action plan, that needs to be aligned with everything that is done at subnational level, provincial, district, down to village level. Otherwise, it will be not cohesive, that will not only not maximize the impact, but that can be contradictive each other. So that's the policy coherence is very important. And the last one, I still have time? Yeah? Is about effective multi-stakeholder partnership. Yeah? So these are very important. So SDGs are complex issues and interlinked, and because of that, it can be expensive. I just told that $3.7 trillion per year in developing countries. So resources with multi-stakeholders partnership, today we witness the signing of MOU between Ministry of Village and the Regional Banks Association. I think that is one good example. So with resources mobilization, that is one point why we should focus on multi-stakeholders partnership. Collaboration and knowledge sharing is the second one. So SDGs require collective efforts from government and society that can bring unique skills and knowledge. Because academia can bring something that government doesn't bring to the table, and civil society. Innovation is not only about digitalization, right? So there is innovative policy, yeah, inclusive policy, new approach and new business model that typically we will not be able to do that, but we have to find new business so we can try different ways of solving the issues. Then the last point is the digital development path of that village. In closing, I want to reiterate that importance of villages in accelerate SDG achievement at national level. The SDGs are global ambition, aiming at addressing the most pressing challenges. However, villages are where actions happen and where SDG become reality. I hope that with today's gathering, we all have the same vision and make our villages in our countries to have and to provide the contribution that need to accelerate SDG in our respective country. With that, thank you very much for time. Yeah.
Thank you very much, Dr. Ansha. Please give a round of applause for the presentation. Thank you for highlighting, and I think it's 10 minutes sharp. If I can capture what of the information is that you highlight some of the role of technology and innovation in accelerating progress toward achieving SDGs, as well as how this solution can be tailored to suit local context. I think we heard some of the mantra, the mantra for promoting the inclusive rural development and SDGs. Among others is integrated approach. I think there's been a technical glitches. So before going to the first speakers, perhaps I will move to our third, now become second speaker, Dr. Himawan Haryono Joyokusumo, Deputy Regional Development, Ministry of National Development Planning Agency of Indonesia. And your presentation will focus on challenges and strategies for achieving SDGs in Indonesia. Dr. Himawan, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Ibu. Excellencies, fellow speakers, fellow advocates of sustainable development, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, very good morning. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Peace be upon us. I'm very honored to be here today to represent the National Development Planning Agency, Bappenas, to share with you the challenges and strategies for achieving the Sustainable Development Goals in Indonesia. I almost don't have anything else to say because Ibu Ansya has already conveyed all the important things, comprehensively. So, but let me try. I prepared about 11 slides. Hopefully I can make it. If not, it is for you to have. Let me start with the legal basis for implementing SDGs agenda in Indonesia. For most of us, perhaps it is only a reminder. For fellows from ASEAN countries, this is a sharing of information. Since 2017, we have already had the regulatory basis for implementing SDGs in Indonesia through the Presidential Decree number 59 of 2017 on the implementation toward SDG achievement. And this regulation is then updated with the new Presidential Decree, which is number 111, 2022. And this regulation basically mandates the following actions. First, to update the Indonesian SDGs target, roadmap and action plans at the national as well as the sub-national levels. Secondly, to improve multi-stakeholders' role through the establishment of national SDGs coordinating team. Thirdly, to strengthen the governor's role as the representative of national government, to coordinate the implementation of SDGs at the local level. And last but not least, to reinforce the innovative financing platform for SDGs. This is basically, these four are mandated through the Presidential Decree. And I think we share the same concern, and believe that in order for us to successfully implement the SDGs, we need to see SDGs not as a government initiative or policy, but rather as multi-stakeholders movement that goes beyond government affairs. So we need to again and again the collaborative actions among the stakeholders. And is it enough to only have this legal basis? For sure it is not, because what we need in addition to that is a good and well measured strategy that contains the following elements or aspects. First, participatory process. This is to make sure that all the stakeholders are involved from the beginning, from the planning stages up to the monitoring and evaluation. Secondly, we need a clear and measurable goals and indicators. We still have challenges, in developing the indicators, especially at the local levels. Thirdly, the strategy need to have these clear financing sources, both from the government budget as well as from the private sectors. Fourth, we need to have clear, responsible parties. So SDGs implementation need these clear, responsible parties, and we can do it by entrusting each indicator to specific implementing line ministries or agencies. And we also need to have the accountability and transparency, and among others, we can do it through creating the monitoring and evaluation mechanism. Yeah? And last but not least, we also need to have the effective communication strategy to ensure and as well as to convince, to make sure that the SDGs will be implemented effectively by all stakeholders. The localizing of SDGs to subnational level and further down to the village level now has become the important agenda of the government of Indonesia. At the provincial level, for example, we have out of the 38 provinces in Indonesia right now, we have 32 provinces that have not only established but also have enacted the inclusive SDGs provincial action plans. Action plans. We also involve the non-state actors. One of the indicators is that we now have 39 SDGs centers. So government in collaboration with the universities. So we already have nationwide 39 SDGs centers across the nation. The contribution of the SDG centers, among other things, is to help prepare the provincial action plan, monitoring and evaluation, as well as the implementation of this action plan. And they do it, through what's so-called the 3 pillars of higher education, namely research, education, and community development. So, the government of Indonesia has also initiated SDGs Desa, or village level SDGs, that will be elaborated more by the next speaker. So I will leave it to our next speaker. But we believe that through the establishment of this SDGs Desa, or village level SDGs, that it will contribute significantly, if done effectively and efficiently, to also contribute to the achievement of the national SDGs agenda. We have reasons to believe that localizing the SDGs all the way down to the village level will further accelerate the achievement of national SDGs. First, this is about data. About 91% of government administration at the lowest level in Indonesia is in fact village administration, or pemerintahan desa. This is 91% of the total. The rest is kelurahan. Secondly, about 71% of the ID card holder, identification card holder, KTP, pemilik KTP, are in fact village residents. And furthermore, the availability of financial support through the allocation of village fund, or dana desa, which amounted to $4.5 billion in 2022. It's about berapa ya? 68 trillion rupiah, or more or less 58% of the total village budget nationwide. Yeah. APB Desa, APBD Desa, ya, can be a key driver for accelerating the progress toward achieving the village SDGs target. So at least these three facts make us more confident, yeah, that localizing SDGs in Indonesia is very promising, yeah, and will contribute significantly to the achievement of the national SDGs. Yeah. On the other hand, of course, we are still facing challenges, yeah, and I'm talking about the data. We'll talk about the gap, the discrepancy in terms of the performance in achieving the SDGs at the rural versus at the urban areas. Yeah. Take the SDG number 1 on poverty, for example. Over the last 5 years, poverty rate in rural areas increased or remains stagnant at 12%, while at the urban areas it's lower than that, only 7%. So poverty is more problematic in the rural areas. That's the first fact. In terms of equality, this is related to goal number 10, yeah, for example. Inequality decrease over time in rural areas, but in urban areas, the figure tend to increase. So these are some interesting figures, yeah. Concerning the other goals, yeah, goal number 3 on health and immunization coverage, goal number 6 on access to clean water, and goal number 16, for example, for about legal documents such as birth certificate, there are also a gap, yeah, differences in performance, you know, both in rural and urban area, where rural community face bigger challenges. So we believe that enhancing access to basic infrastructure and public services, including roads, electricity supply, clean drinking water and sanitation facilities, quality education and healthcare facilities, and public administrative services is a key factor to reduce poverty in rural area. In addition, broadband internet, information and communication technology services, and other frontiers technologies are also fundamental to create possibility to end the divide between urban and rural communities and to accelerate rural economic information. Distinguished guests, the challenges faced by rural communities such as poverty, inequality, issues in human resources, access to basic services, etc., we believe can be addressed by focusing on what's so-called the cross-cutting programs, such as improvement of basic infrastructure, human capital development, provision of public administrative services, broadband internet connection, and other information communication technology services. In addition to that, in addition to the cross-cutting programs such as improvement of agriculture productivity, providing smallholder farmers to access to land, social protection of rural labor, preventing water and land resources from degradation and pollution, will also be beneficial to rural community and help address the challenges. Lastly, finally, to harness the potential villages to accelerate SDG achievement in Indonesia, our collaborative actions need to be aimed at 8 things. First, improving SDG integration to village development agenda. Second, aligning village SDGs planning with the existing subnational action plan. exploring adequate financing for SDG program at the village level, optimizing partnership and synergies with district municipality government, promoting dissemination, socialization, communication, and advocacy of SDGs to communities, monitoring and evaluation of village SDGs implementation, and last but not least, promoting data accuracy and validity at the beneficiary level to ensure well-targeted intervention. Again, this data does matters in Indonesia, and we still have a serious problem with the data availability and data quality. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Himawan. Another round of applause. This is a very important. Indonesia is one of, the champion countries in SDGs localization. And I think we can see from the explanation of Dr. Himawan how this kind of approach is translated because it's embedded in the national framework. I think this is what makes it easier to mobilize and implement SDGs localization because it's embedded. There's a decree, national decree on SDGs localization. Also mentioning in the presentation is some of the achievement, important milestones that have been achieved by Indonesia, that SDGs localization is put as one of development priorities. I think most of province already have the provincial action plans. So I think this is another important milestone. Although, as you mentioned, some challenges are still evidence, which I think this is another opportunity for Indonesia and also for ASEAN member states to learn on how to handle these challenges. Equipped with a comprehensive framework, I think we are very confident that by 2030, most of the goals at least have been ticked. Thank you, Dr. Himawan, for the presentation. So perhaps before we move to our on-site speakers, may we check if speakers joining online is also connected? Okay, so while waiting for the, I think our organizer here are working on the technical glitches, I would like to move to our speakers. The third one, Mr. Laode Muhajirin, Head of Center for a Compilation of Integrated Plans Development and Information Agency, the Ministry of Villages, Disadvantaged Region, and Transmigration. The presentation will focus on SDG implementation in the village level. So, Pak Laude, the floor is yours.
Terima kasih. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Peace be upon us. Salam. Om Swastiastu, Namo Buddhaya, Salam Kebajikan. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, The Excellence Mr. Sugito, SOS, MH, Director General of Village and Rural Development, Honorable Chairman of Senior Official Meeting of Rural Development and Poverty Education, Deputy Secretary General ASEAN for Sociocultural Community, all Echelon 1 and 2 official in Ministry of Village Development and Disadvantaged Region and Transmigration, all delegated representing countries in ASEAN. Thank you for being here today at ASEAN Collaboration Forum on Localizing 2013 SDGs in the Village. Mohon izin untuk pemaparan berikutnya saya menggunakan bahasa Indonesia. Ya, cukup tadi pembukaan dengan bahasa Inggris supaya mewarnai juga. Tema yang diberikan oleh panitia kepada kami terkait dengan pelokalan SDGs pada tingkat desa di Indonesia. Kita ketahui bahwa Indonesia sudah melahirkan SDGs Desa dan jejaring Desa ASEAN yang kita laksanakan pada siang hari ini atau pagi hari ini, dan Indonesia mengadopsi SDGs global dan melokalkannya hingga ke level desa melalui SDGs Desa. Tentunya SDGs Desa ini bertujuan mengimplementasikan poin-poin yang berada pada SDGs global dan mentransformasikannya ke dalam indikator pembangunan desa. Selain itu, SDGs Desa juga ini bertujuan untuk memastikan bahwa seluruh masyarakat desa di seluruh pelosok Nusantara berpartisipasi aktif dalam menyusun perencanaan pembangunan dan melaksanakan pembangunan desa melalui proses musyawarah. Untuk itu, ada beberapa hal pokok yang perlu kami sampaikan pada kesempatan ini. Yang pertama terkait dengan apa sih yang menjadi urgensi SDGs itu di desa. Kita ketahui bahwa desa mencakup wilayah kerja yang kecil dengan jumlah warga yang sangat sedikit. Nah, tentunya ini memudahkan pengelolaan wilayahnya, baik itu infrastruktur, pemukiman, ekosistem kelautan maupun ekosistem daratan, sekaligus juga mempermudah penanganan penduduk, ya, baik dalam aspek kemiskinan, kesehatan, pendidikan, keadilan sosial bagi setiap warga. Kalau kita lihat dalam layar ini, kita kelihatan bahwa 38 provinsi di Indonesia dengan 416 kabupaten dan 98 kota dengan 75.265 desa yang membutuhkan penanganan serius, dan tentunya meskipun dalam wilayah kecil, posisi desa sebagian besar sebagai bagian tetap menjadi bagian dari birokrasi nasional. Posisi masyarakat sebagai bagian dari kewarganegaraan Indonesia, dan juga ekosistemnya menjadi bagian dari ekosistem yang lebih luas. Nah, tentunya menjadikan substansi di desa ini juga semakin luas dan kompleks. Nah, pada posisi inilah saya kira SDGs Desa sangat dibutuhkan diimplementasikan di desa, yaitu membangun desa dengan substansi lokal total namun dapat dikendalikan pada wilayah dan pada warga yang terbatas. Artinya, peluang keberhasilan penerapan SDGs Desa ini pada suatu desa menjadi lebih maksimal. Bagi desa-desa dengan 75.265 desa di Indonesia, pelokalan SDGs benar-benar sangat dibutuhkan. Apalagi melihat dari wilayah teritorial Indonesia, kurang lebih 91% itu adalah desa. Dan sebarannya sangat beragam dengan tipologi yang berbeda-beda. Ada desa yang di pesisir, ada desa yang di perbatasan, ada desa di pegunungan, ada desa di wilayah tambang. Dan tentunya ini membutuhkan perhatian yang juga beragam dan tentunya dengan penanganan yang harusnya sesuai dengan kondisi lokal desa tersebut. Nah, untuk mencapai tujuan pembangunan berkelanjutan ini menjadi acuan tentunya untuk desa dalam menyusun sebuah program perencanaannya baik jangka pendek maupun jangka menengah dan menyeluruh terhadap seluruh aspek-aspek kehidupan warga dan lingkungan kewilayahannya. Oleh karena itu, pelokalan SDGs Desa sebagai SDGs yang membuat arah pembangunan menjadi jelas, terinci dengan tujuan-tujuan yang dalam tujuan yang holistik. Nah, pelokalan SDGs Desa, pelokalan SDGs menjadi SDGs Desa ini mencakup seluruh aspek pelokalan yang sudah dilakukan baik secara global maupun regional. Seluruh tujuan SDGs yang di-Indonesiakan menjadi tujuan pembangunan berkelanjutan, saya kira ini sudah dilokalkan ke level desa dalam SDGs Desa. Salah satunya adalah penggunaan bahasa yang kita ketahui bahwa kalau melihat dari SDGs dan SDGs regional, kita mengenal ada no poverty atau penghapusan kemiskinan, menghapus kemiskinan. Dan dalam SDGs lokal, dengan kita melokalkan SDGs ke level desa, penamaan atau penggunaan diksi itu dengan menggunakan diksi yang lebih sederhana mengarah kepada sebuah tujuan, yaitu desa tanpa kemiskinan. Dan ikon juga yang kita bisa lihat dalam ikon menghapus kemiskinan ini, dari ikon gambar ibu anak bapak itu diganti dengan ikon berupa gambar celengan ayam, ya Pak Pahim. Itu artinya apa? Ini lebih memudahkan masyarakat, lebih memahami karakteristik masyarakat, lebih melokalkan apa yang diinginkan oleh masyarakat. Sehingga kebutuhan tentang SDGs desa benar-benar bisa dirasakan langsung, bisa dinikmati langsung oleh masyarakat untuk bisa disampaikan kepada seluruh aspek sampai ke level warga. Selain itu juga saya kira dalam proses perumusan SDGs desa juga, perumusan selain tadi kita bicarakan SDGs desa, juga indikator-indikator SDGs-nya juga harus menggambarkan, harus berdasarkan potret keberagaman kekhasan desa di wilayah Nusantara. Kita memiliki 75.000 desa dengan 75.000 keragaman budaya, sosial, ekonomi, lingkungan yang berbeda-beda. Tentunya ini menjadi bagian bonus bagi Indonesia tentunya untuk menyusun perumusan indikator SDGs desa yang lebih kompleks dan lebih menjawab kebutuhan masyarakat desa. Sebagaimana tadi disampaikan oleh Pak Deputi Pak Himawan, bahwa Perpres nomor 59 2017 ini merupakan wujud tadi komitmen pemerintah Indonesia untuk menjadi bagian dari aksi bersama masyarakat global dalam mendorong pembangunan berkelanjutan guna mengatasi kemiskinan, kelaparan, pendidikan, dan perubahan iklim. Nah, implementasi amanah Undang-Undang nomor 6 tahun 2014 tentang desa, ini juga membuka ruang besar buat desa untuk mendukung percepatan pencapaian tujuan pembangunan berkelanjutan. Selain desa memiliki kewenangan untuk mengatur rumah tangganya sendiri, bisa ditinjau dari aspek kewilayahan dan aspek kewarganegaraan di Indonesia. Berdasarkan dua aspek tersebut, desa berkontribusi, ya, desa dapat berkontribusi 74% dalam mendukung percapaian tujuan pembangunan berkelanjutan. Perhitungan ini tentunya didasarkan pada aspek kewilayahan, di mana tadi saya sampaikan 91% wilayah Indonesia terkait dengan itu berada di desa. Artinya terkait dengan kewilayahan desa ini, dalam SDGs desa atau di dalam SDGs ini untuk aspek kewilayahan ini ada 11 goal yang muat tentang kewilayahan dari SDGs goal ke-7 sampai goal ke-8. Sedangkan aspek kewarganegaraan sebanyak 43% warga berada di pedesaan dengan 6 goal terkait dengan warga dari SDGs pertama, SDGs kedua, 3, 4, dan 5, 6. Oleh karena itu, saya kira dibutuhkan sebuah kebijakan perencanaan dan pelaksanaan pembangunan desa dan pedesaan untuk pencapaian tujuan pembangunan berkelanjutan ke dalam level desa yang diintegrasikan dalam SDGs desa. Salah satunya juga didukung oleh regulasi yang dikeluarkan oleh Kementerian Desa melalui Peraturan Menteri Desa nomor 21 tahun 2020 tentang pedoman umum pembangunan dan pemberdayaan masyarakat desa. Bapak Ibu sekalian, tentunya ini ada beberapa slide, sedikit saya menggambarkan terkait dengan beberapa tahapan dalam pelaksanaan pendataan SDGs desa. Tentunya ini dalam pendataan ini kita mengenal ada tahapan pendataan awal dan pemutakhiran data. Nah, hasil dari pendataan ini tentunya menjadi bahan, menjadi arah kebijakan dan sasaran pendekatan desa dalam merupakan aspek yang memuat data kewilayahan dan juga kewarganegaraan untuk menggambarkan kondisi objektif atau fakta dari kondisi desa itu sendiri. Data SDGs desa tentunya yang di-input, yang di data tersebut tentunya akan dimasukkan dan disiapkan oleh Kementerian Desa melalui sebuah instrumen berupa data digital desa. Bapak Ibu sekalian, tentunya harapan-harapan dari apa yang tadi juga disampaikan oleh Pak Gus Menteri, bahwa pelokalan SDGs ini sangat membantu desa, terutama dalam menyusun perencanaan pembangunan desa dengan melihat seluruh unsur-unsur capaian dari SDGs pertama sampai SDGs 8, sehingga menjadi arah kebijakan desa menyusun perencanaan apa yang menjadi prioritas yang dibutuhkan oleh desa dalam perencanaan pembangunan, baik itu jangka menengah 6 tahun maupun jangka pendek 1 tahun, yang tentunya dalam pelaksanaannya akan didukung oleh skema pendanaan baik itu APBD, dana desa maupun pendanaan yang berasal dari pemerintah provinsi, pusat, dan kabupaten. Argumentasi yang tadi saya sampaikan tentunya memperkuat posisi desa menjadi poros utama dalam mewujudkan pelokalan SDGs desa sampai ke level desa. Kita harus optimis, saya kira, kesiapan dan kemampuan desa untuk mewujudkan SDGs desa. Karena kita yakin desa bisa, kita sudah banyak, saya kira, belajar dari pengalaman-pengalaman sebelumnya, bagaimana ketika pertama kali di awal pembahasan APBN tentang dana desa, begitu banyak pihak yang meragukan kesiapan kemampuan desa untuk mengelola dana desa. Ya, banyak yang berpikir underestimate terkait dengan kemampuan pemerintah desa, dalam hal ini kepala desa dan warga masyarakat desa untuk mengelola dana desa. Tapi kita buktikan bahwa dengan adanya dana desa, kepala desa dan seluruh masyarakat dapat mengelola pembangunan di desa, dapat meningkatkan kesejahteraan masyarakat di dekat desa. Selain itu juga kita bisa melihat pada masa pandemi COVID-19, di mana seluruh aspek kehidupan ekonomi di dunia sangat lumpuh. Dan kita buktikan bahwa keberadaan desa, kemampuan desa melakukan recovery ya dari kondisi yang terpuruk bisa kembali lebih cepat tumbuh dan berkembang melalui sebuah program-program baik itu BLT, padat karya tunai yang sudah dijalankan oleh desa. Nah, ini saya kira kita harus yakin dan percaya kemampuan, kesanggupan desa, karena desa bisa. Untuk itu saya kira Bapak Ibu sekalian, kita memerlukan sebuah komitmen, ya, komitmen dan keberanian bersama dari seluruh unsur pemangku kepentingan, baik kepala desa, perangkat desa, supradesa, baik itu kecamatan, kabupaten, provinsi, serta seluruh pelaku pembangunan di desa untuk menjadikan SDGs desa sebagai tujuan pembangunan bersama. Dan untuk mencapai tujuan SDGs sampai tahun 2030 di 75.000 desa di Indonesia, ini memang bukan hal yang mudah, apalagi target yang ingin kita capai adalah pencapaiannya sudah harus 100%, tapi ini bukan tidak mungkin untuk dicapai karena komitmen kuat dan sinergi serta kolaborasi dari semua pihak tentunya sebagai kunci strategis target capaian ini bisa kita wujudkan. Dan saya kira melalui forum jejaring Desa ASEAN ini, kita akan banyak belajar dari praktik baik serta kesuksesan pelokalan SDGs mungkin di level ASEAN, baik itu yang di Thailand, Malaysia, Singapura, ya Laos, Kamboja, Myanmar, Vietnam, ini menjadi bagian penting, juga bagian dari kolaborasi kerjasama ASEAN untuk kita belajar bersama, transfer ilmu, dan juga menjadikan isu-isu penting desa bisa dibahas secara bottom up langsung oleh masyarakat desa untuk mencari strategi bagi kemajuan pembangunan desa di tingkat regional serta menguatkan identitas ASEAN di tengah masyarakat dengan kebijakan tindakan strategis tentunya memberikan dampak pembangunan desa di Indonesia dan negara-negara ASEAN lainnya. Saya kira ini untuk target SDGs tahun 2030 kita melihat ada 4 hal terkait dengan capaian-capaian yang ingin kita hasilkan, dan ini bisa kita lihat di paparan ini. Nah, sebagai penutup, perlu kami sampaikan, Kementerian Desa dalam hal ini Badan Pengembangan Informasi sedang menyusun rencana induk perdesaan 2025-2045. Yang ini sejalan dengan inline dengan yang disusun oleh Pak Himawan bersama tim di Bappenas, yaitu menyusun RPJPN Indonesia 2025-45. Dan tentunya dalam penyusunan isu-isu pembangunan perdesaan, kita tidak terlepas dari dimensi pembangunan desa yang kita kaitkan dengan isu strategis yang ada, serta kita kaitkan dengan 18 goal yang ada di SDGs. Nah, bisa kita lihat dari 5 dimensi yang ada di pembangunan desa, ada dimensi sumber daya alam dan lingkungan. Ini terkait dengan isu strategis yang ada di desa, terkait dengan aspek lingkungan. Dalam hal ini bencana alam, climate change, dan juga berbagai faktor-faktor di bidang lingkungan. Dan ini kaitannya, erat kaitannya dengan goal yang ada di SDGs. Yang pertama terkait dengan goal yang ke-7, 12, 13, 14, 15, dan 16. Artinya apa? Semua isu strategis yang dihasilkan untuk menyusun sebuah dokumen rencana jangka panjang maupun jangka menengah tidak terlepas dari isu-isu maupun goal yang ada di SDGs. Demikian pula saya kira dimensi terkait dengan sarana prasarana dan konektivitas, ini terkait dengan isu strategis kita di bidang pelayanan dasar, konektivitas, aksesibilitas, serta keterkaitan antara desa dan surpradesa. Nah, tentunya dalam SDGs ini ada goal 9, 10, dan 11 yang tentunya bisa menjawab sekaligus mengakomodir isu-isu strategis yang ada di desa. Dan selanjutnya yang ketiga adalah sumber daya manusia dan pemberdayaan masyarakat. Ini terkait erat dengan isu strategis di bidang perdesaan, terkait dengan aspek sumber daya manusia, pemerintahan desa, tata kelola pemerintahan, aspek pendampingan pemberdayaan, ya pendampingan lokal desa, pendampingan masyarakat. Dan ini juga menjadi bagian penting dalam unsur SDGs desa dalam goal pertama, kedua, ketiga, 4, dan 5, dan 6. Karena ini terkait dengan aspek warga. Dan selanjutnya yang keempat, dimensi sosial budaya dan kelembagaan masyarakat. Ini juga terkait dengan isu strategis terkait dengan urbanisasi dan juga kearifan lokal yang tentunya ini terkait dengan SDGs ke-17 dan 18. Dan terakhir, dimensi yang terkait dengan pembangunan desa ini juga terkait dengan ekonomi dan investasi, ini terkait dengan isu yang terkait yang di dalam pembangunan desa, yaitu aspek ekonomi wilayah dan aspek dukungan pendanaan. Dan sebagai bagian dari SDGs itu masuk dalam goal ke-8. Nah, Bapak Ibu sekalian, saya kira demikian apa yang saya sampaikan. Mari membangun ASEAN dari desa, karena keberhasilan pembangunan Indonesia dan negara ASEAN dan desa-desa di ASEAN adalah akumulasi dari keberhasilan pembangunan desa-desa di Indonesia, di seluruh Indonesia, dan desa-desa di ASEAN. Wallahu muwaffiq ila aqwamit thoriq. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Thank you very much, Pak Laude Muhajirin, for the very comprehensive presentation. I think this is really showcase what Indonesia has been achieved for the past years in promoting and strengthening enabling environment for policy coherence on SDGs between national and local level. I think this is also with the objective to contribute to the attainment of the SDGs at the global level. So thank you very much for a very comprehensive presentation, Bapak. We are now connecting with our last speakers, Ms. Sanjivani Dilante Singh, Economic Affairs Officer of UNESCAP. Sanjivani, can we confirm if you are here with us? Hello from Jogja.
Good morning. Can you hear me?
Yes, I think we have some. Can we increase the volume? Sanjivani, can you say something, 1 or 2 words, so that we can hear your audio very well?
Good morning. Can you hear me?
Yes, loud and clear. Very good morning,
Okay.
Sanjivani. So, thank you. Apologies for the technical glitches. I think this is something that we need to prepare for when we're joining online. So, thank you also for joining us, Sanjivani. We understand that you will present on supporting the localization of SDGs in a multi-crisis context regional voluntary local review, or VLR, guidance and experience. So without further ado, I'm going to give the microphone to you. Please bear in mind, we will be very much appreciated if you can limit your presentation not to perhaps 5 to 7 minutes, if that's okay. Thank you, Sanjivani.
Thank you so much. Excellencies, senior officials, distinguished guests, good morning. My name is Sanjivani Singh, and I'm part of the Sustainable Urban Development section, which is under the Environment and Development Division of ESCAP. And it is my honor to be here and participate in this important event today. The Economic and Social Commission for Asia Pacific, or ESCAP, is the most inclusive intergovernment platform in Asia Pacific region, and the Commission provides cooperation among its 53 members and 9 associate members to identify solutions to sustainable development challenges. And ESCAP also provides support to member states for the implementation of the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development, including the follow-up review through the Asia Pacific Forum on Sustainable Development. Next slide. Thank you. So in today's presentation is really on supporting the localization of the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development in a multi-crisis context. We will start with the background and the multi-crisis context, and then delve into the case for localization with considerations for implementation at a village level. Next, we will explore the voluntary review. We will explore why a voluntary review is essential and highlight the regional guidance and examples of successful localization efforts that we have implemented. And then lastly, we will highlight some ways to get inspired and take action. Next slide, please. So as we stand today, the world is facing multiple interlinked crises that are really testing the limits of the current development paradigm. And just as countries and cities across Asia and the Pacific struggle to recover from the health and socio-economic crisis resulting from the COVID-19 pandemic, the effects of climate change continue to ravage the region. And essentially, to achieve the SDGs across the region, there is a need for collaboration, innovation, and solutions that build on regional cooperation and take a people-centered approach. And I think from what I heard, many of the previous speakers sort of alluded to this point as well. Next slide. So I'll try to go through this quickly as well, sort of delving a little bit deeper into the multi-linked crisis facing cities, towns, villages across the region. And I think there's a couple of significant factors to consider. Firstly, in cities in the region, so cities in the region continue to grow and now are home to over 54% of the world's population and 50% of Asia Pacific's population. And they're both, as we all know, economic and opportunities and social and environmental challenges related to urbanization, especially unplanned urbanization, including increased informality, urban poverty, multidimensional inequalities, and urban degradation. Urbanization has also contributed to a decrease in overall rural poverty as people migrate to urban areas seeking better opportunities. However, this does not mean the end of poverty, especially for those left behind. And the migration of younger and more skilled labor can also reduce the productivity and strain the economic and social structures in rural areas. We're also seeing rising sea levels, increased temperatures and precipitation and storms due to climate change. And rural areas and villages are often more vulnerable to natural disasters and flooding due to the lack of robust housing and infrastructure, making them more susceptible to the impacts of severe weather. And then just looking at, air pollution, cities contribute to 70% of the emissions. However, air pollution from agricultural practices in rural areas, primarily from agricultural residue burning, as well as diesel-powered machinery, has had significant impact on air quality and poses significant health risks regionally. yeah, and then there's other issues related to access to, basic services and health services, like we saw in during the pandemic. And in rural areas, accessibility to health services can be challenging due to limited availability and access due to long distances and resources. And then also we're seeing globally, issues with regard to the fuel crisis, which is also affecting food prices, and also, increasing food insecurity due to the disruption of global supply chains, as well as the rising cost of fertilizer. Next slide, please. So really looking at a snapshot of SDG progress for the region, current data from the United Nations Economic and Social Commission shows that as of 2021, the Asia-Pacific region has not achieved any of the Sustainable Development Goals, and progress has further slowed, while the compounding crisis has also led to rising inflation globally, and rising prices are driving countries, especially low-income countries, into debt and distress. If we take a deeper dive at Southeast Asia, and if we look more closely at SDG 11, we can see that progress against several indicators have regressed, and that the only one that has progressed is the adoption of and implementation of national DRR strategies. Next slide. And I think the importance and significance of the local context in achieving the SDGs cannot be overlooked, especially in relation to cities, towns, and villages. And it's estimated that 65% of the SDGs need to be met in a local context where the impacts are more deeply felt. And I recall hearing from the previous speaker that 91% of, I think, Indonesia's administration is really local. So, I think this has a great impact or implication for that. The other key thing is that rural areas in particular are diverse, with different landscape, cultures, and socio-economic conditions, and essentially location and context become key determinants of the opportunities and outcomes available to communities. And understanding these nuances or differences is crucial in tailoring our strategies for sustainable urban development effectively. However, it's important to also note that there are gaps and challenges that hinder rural communities' ability to fully contribute to the SDGs. And these include the applicability of urban and legal frameworks in the context of rural communities and villages, the financial capacity of villages, and linked to that, insufficient funding and resources really hinder the implementation of projects that could drive SDG implementation. We also have data deficits, which present a significant challenge, and the lack of reliable and up-to-date data on rural areas and villages make it difficult to assess progress and actually identify areas that need attention. And then also governance structures that are centralized and lack inclusivity can also minimize the involvement of villages in SDG implementation. Next slide. I think other speakers have touched on this as well. Why a voluntary local review? And voluntary local reviews are really useful tools for local governments to measure their progress towards the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development, and provide really a valuable opportunity for accountability, inclusive evidence-based decision-making, and policy development that leaves no one behind and prioritizes those who are last to be first. And VLR essentially does three things. It tracks progress on the SDGs and provides a deeper understanding of challenges and opportunities. It identifies concrete actions, resources, and partnerships to address challenges and leverage opportunities. It builds on momentum across all levels of government and creates a basis for a common vision and language to have a global conversation on global and regional conversation on how to accelerate the implementation of the SDGs and sustainable development. Next slide, please. So really looking at the importance of a village VLR. So a village VLR is important for several reasons. Firstly, it provides the opportunity to delve into the most localized context and to provide a local perspective on the progress and the challenges related to the SDGs, and it enables the development of strategies to address these specific needs. It also provides an inclusive and collaborative platform for the engagement of community members, leaders, and local government and other stakeholders, which really fosters greater ownership and buy-in. And then also it sheds light on the fiscal needs of the community to achieve SDGs, including identifying the budgetary gaps and resource requirements, and provides a basis to advocate for increased funding from regional and national governments. Next slide, please. Other reasons include, that it really encourages data collection and the analysis at a local level and information to really measure the progress against the SDGs. It also provides, the preparation of a village, a VLR, can also foster collaboration and exchange of knowledge, not just across villages, but across regions and even across countries. And then the findings and recommendations can be used as evidence to promote the development and enhancement of policies, programs, and funding. Next slide. Thank you. Then looking at the preconditions for a successful VLR. Firstly, it's the importance of political buy-in and institutionalization. So a VLR success really hinges on the strong backing from political leaders and decision makers, and embedding the VLR into existing government structures or creating new structures to support the process enables its long-term relevance and continuity and contributions to decision-making and policy-making. And I think it's clear from one of the previous speakers that Indonesia has a very clear institutional mandate to support voluntary local movement and really the localization of the SDGs. In terms of data availability and credibility, so VLR requires access to relevant and up-to-date data, especially in relation to vulnerabilities and risks in the sectors of focus. And the credibility of the assessment really depends on the reliability and accuracy of the collected data. So this is really, really important that we have access to credible and reliable data. And then finally, institutional support to engage communities and really ensuring that it is a collaborative and partnership approach, and that all the relevant stakeholders, including communities, the government, private sector.
Hello, Sanjivani. I'm not sure whether you can hear us, but I think you got disconnected for a couple of seconds. Can you hear my voice, Sanjivani? Organizers, may we check if Sanjivani is, I'm unfortunately, so perhaps with that, can we see confirmation if Sanjivani is logging in, or perhaps we can just conclude this presentation? Oh, okay, so there's another, okay.
Can you hear me?
Oh, yes, you're here. Sanjivani, sorry, can you wrap up your presentation? We have very tight schedule, perhaps in 2 minutes, would that be okay?
Are you able to hear me?
Yes, I can hear you clearly. We can hear you clearly. Hello, Sanjivani, can you hear my voice? Hi, Sanjivani. I'm not sure if you can hear my voice, but can you confirm if you can hear my voice? I think you're freezing again. Okay, so perhaps we can wrap this presentation. Unfortunately, we cannot have the complete presentation of Sanjivani due to internet glitches, but if she's joining, please, we can still invite her to provide any intervention later on. So the very brief presentation really validates the importance of localizing SDGs, and also from her presentation we learned about the VLR, and which is really resonates with the ASEAN's effort in the attainment of SDGs, as well as the importance of engagement of rural communities in this journey. So with that, I think we conclude the first part of this. Please join me to give another round of applause to the speakers here for their insightful presentation. Thank you very much. I'm a bit conscious about the time. We have a very tight schedule, and I don't want to be the burden between, or the, not a burden, but the, between you and lunch. So perhaps we can have a 10 minutes Q&A. This is very brief, but I think this is an important. Hi Sanjivani, apologies. Due to, I think, time constraint, we have to wrap up your presentation. Although some of them is very clear, we managed to get some of the key points. Really unfortunate. If it is okay with you, we can get the copy of your presentation for distribution to participants. But you are very free to join us in the Q&A session. We are currently ongoing. So I'm inviting all participants here, if you have any burning question or feedback that you wish to share with the speakers, our distinguished speakers. We have 10 minutes for that, so please feel free to raise your hand. Anyone? I think people are very eager to have a lunch break, but okay, so perhaps just before we officially close this session, can I invite for each speakers to share in 1 minute a very quick observation on what is your most practical recommendation or action point you would propose to ensure that localizing SDGs remain a priority in village development agenda. I hope you can wrap this in 1 minute. So I will invite the 4 speakers. The question would be, what are the most practical recommendations or action points you would propose to ensure that localizing SDGs remain a priority in village development agenda? Is there anything that you have learned from your previous experience? Please give us your observation and views on this in a 1 minute intervention, please.
Yeah, thank you. So localizing of SDG is to bring the global goal to local level, right? And the most important, I think, is that to give space for local communities so that they can decide on their development path, bring everybody together and decide using data, but also using human-centered approach. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. May we invite other delegates? Papa, please.
Me?
Yes,
Okay.
please. You're ready with the microphone, so yes, please. Papa.
Yeah, I think you want to make it a success, yeah, in localizing the SDG,
Correct.
especially up to the very local level, which is village level. I think we have to still doing our homework. First, we need to improve the understanding of the local leaders, about the benefit of implementing SDGs. Because many of us are still seeing, this SDG implementation, from the cost expenditure side. We need to expand something, while we have at the village level many other priorities. If we can improve the understanding and help them to integrate the village development plan, I mean SDGs plan into the village development plan, and blend it together, then we can solve one of the basic problems, At the same time, we also improve the ownership of this, And then at the national level, we still need to work on the data, because when we want to measure the success of the implementation, for example, among other things through voluntary local review, we have to have the data, right? And this is still an issue, even at the higher level, like kabupaten level, municipality level, even at the national level, we still use the proxy indicators, which are necessarily correct. Yeah. So working on the data. And then the third one, which is another key, is how to secure the financing of these SDGs. And of course, we have spoken about collaborative action, making or engaging in a partnership with the private sectors, or community. But then it is a kind of a chicken and egg dilemma, Those who want to participate, especially the private sector, usually want to know about what we need, and it should be reflected in the plan, in the good plan, So this is our responsibility as well at the national level to also help the local government, local stakeholders, to prepare a good plan on SDGs implementation to help secure the financing. Thank you.
Thank you very much. A very comprehensive response. May I invite Pak Laude first? Or perhaps Sanjivani first, and I get back to you. Would that be okay?
Yes, so I'll go ahead. Thank you so much. I think, from my experience in the region, some important factors are really to provide guidance in terms of how to conduct a voluntary local review, provide resources, provide access to information, and then also focus on really the ensuring that the correct data is able to be collected. And what I also wanted to highlight, so we've developed regional guidance that is available, and many cities, especially secondary cities, that have used this guidance to implement a VLR, and this kind of guidance can be adopted for a village level, and I think it's important for communities to understand the process, and then also the importance of ensuring that once a VLR is done, that this information is shared among villages and then shared at a higher level regionally and nationally, and feeds into sub-national reviews as well as the voluntary national review, just to ensure that the issues from a grassroots level are really fed in an effective way upwards. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Giovanni. And last but not least, Pak Laude, please, the floor is.
Terima kasih, Bapak Ibu sekalian. Perlokalan SDGs desa di seluruh desa di Nusantara tentunya menjadi wajib dan menjadi prioritas utama kita untuk melokalkan, dan butuh keseriusan kita bersama, membangun bersama, mendukung desa, mendukung desa bersama kita, bukan hanya desa yang bekerja sendiri, tapi juga dukungan dari pemerintah kabupaten, pemerintah provinsi, kementerian dan lembaga, serta seluruh pelaku-pelaku pembangunan yang ada di desa menjadi bagian penting dalam mensukseskan program SDGs desa dalam perencanaan dan pelaksanaan pembangunan di desa. Demikian, Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Thank you very much, distinguished speakers. With that, we conclude this morning session. Once again, allow us to extend our appreciation and thank you for the speakers, and as well to you for your attention. Thank you very much. I hand over the microphone to the MC. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you to all speakers and also moderator today for our first panel discussion on Asian Collaborative Forum on Localizing 2030 SDGs in the village level. And then, ladies and gentlemen, so this is the end of our first panel discussion. And we will go to the next discussion on the role of regional development banks. on the role of regional development banks in village and rural development. But before that, let us have a lunch break now. And then you can take your lunch at the ballroom lobby. And then you can bring it back into the ballroom and enjoy your lunch on the ballroom table. And we hope that we are going to be back again here to continue our next discussion today on Senior Official Meeting on Rural Development and Poverty Eradication, SAMR TPE Indonesia 2023, and we will start the next session at 1:35 p.m. Kami beritahukan kepada Bapak dan Ibu sekalian di acara Senior Official Meeting on Rural Development and Poverty Eradication, SAMR TPE Indonesia 2023, bahwa saat ini kami persilakan Bapak dan Ibu sekalian untuk dapat menikmati makan siang yang telah dipersiapkan di area ballroom lobby. Bapak dan Ibu sekalian, silakan untuk menikmati lunch break kita hari ini. Dan kemudian bisa membawa kembali di area ballroom dan menikmatinya di dalam ballroom, di meja ballroom ya. Kemudian untuk sesi berikutnya kita masih akan ada discussion, di mana untuk sesi berikutnya kita akan memulai acaranya tepat pada pukul 1:35 waktu Indonesia Barat. Terima kasih.